Good morning here from Dental Racing. Today we're going to rebuild that transfer case in the Safari wagon. It's an NP208. We're putting a Tom Wood slip yoke eliminator in it. It should go pretty good. If this is something you're doing at home, it's a perfect time to put a rebuild kit in it as well. It doesn't change. That's Bob running around upstairs. He likes to play up in the loft. Anyway, I'm sure you heard that. Sounds like an elephant up there. But anyway, so I don't see any problems, foresee any problems doing this. I don't think we're going to run into anything crazy. I'm going to show you a lot of cool tricks on not cool tricks, but I mean just simple tricks on how to put those things, take them apart, put them together. They're not complicated. I mean, you don't. Doesn't take any special tools. Snap ring pliers is about as special of a tool as you need to do it to get into them. So it is not hard to do. If you pay attention, I give you some little simple guidelines, and that kind of applies to the whole new process transfer case line. There's no reason anyone can't do it. There's nothing special about those things. So we'll remove it, we'll rebuild it, install the slip yoke eliminator, reinstall it, and then my wife and I are going to Orlando for a week. So there. Yeah, we're gonna have fun. It's late February right now. It's a complete swamp outside. We're in winter melt-off mode. We're in eastern Washington, so we got a lot of snow. So anyway, so that's that. We'll get going on it. We'll get it done. I mean, probably take us all in all about 2.5 hours maybe total. Take it out, put it back in, rebuild it, put it back in. It doesn't take very long. If you don't have a lift, you're gonna have to fight it underneath, but that still shouldn't affect anything. So yeah, plywood on some sawhorses is all you need. It's a set of snap ring pliers, and I think an 1/8" socket. If you don't have one that big, you'll need that, and that's it. It's real easy. So stay tuned and check it out. All right, wearing my Murder Bob hat today. I'm going to take the cross member out here first. I'm just going to zip all the bolts out. Every single one of them is 3/8. So I'm just going to do that real quick. I'll leave one bolt on either side, one going vertical so that it's easy to get to when I lower the car down. I'm just going to take those out and lower the car down and put the cross member on a cart so that I can roll it out from underneath there. I got the engine supported by a chain and that big block underneath the transmission for now. That was easy. And that way I can lower it down a little bit to get the transfer case off after I get it out. And here I got a little arrow pointing to some rust blisters on the lower fender there. That's going to be a fun one to fix later. And there we go, it's out. All right, now I'm just going to take the transfer case out. It's just, there's 4 bolts or 4 nuts or whatever to get it off of there. I only had 2 of them on there tight anyway, so it doesn't take much to get it off. And then I'll just lift it down and set it on my cart. And the nice part about having that chain and that block is it's easy to lower it down like I just did there, so that I can slip the thing out there easier. And there we go. That wasn't too hard. It's out now, and we're going to start tearing her apart. I just take all the little accessories and stuff off first. You got to get that speedometer cable thing out. You can't slip the tail shaft off with that thing in there because the gears get intertwangled. So you got to take that out first. I like taking these things apart horizontal if you're not going to completely dismantle them to rebuild them all the way. Because there's a lot of junk inside there, and it all would end up down by the adapter down there, and you wouldn't be able to get it out afterwards. You'd have to spray something in there to try to flush it out. So I just left it like that, and I'll do it horizontal and make a big mess and stuff, and just use those little diapers to clean it up. Yeah, and it's pretty easy. I mean, just pay attention as you take it apart and make sure nothing's broken or if there's something wore or whatever. Just you're going to look at it twice. You're going to look at it taking it apart. You're going to look at it putting it together. This thing only goes on there one way. I've seen those things on there backwards a number of times.
and it just wouldn't work right. That thing is the oil. It's kind of like an oil pump, I guess. It spins and just kind of directs oil in through that plastic housing thing there. And then here I'm pointing to the oil port that goes to the back, just like we were talking about on that Ford Chevy hybrid thing we were making. And those things, every time someone rebuilds one of these things, they put so much silicone around stuff, they clog up that port. And this one was, again, completely clogged up. Like, no oil was getting back to that back bearing because they decided that they needed to put a half-inch wide bead of silicone on there just to squish it all out. Here I'm just pointing to the pry locations that they put into the housing there. They just have a little opening there, so you can stick a screwdriver in there and pry the two halves apart. They're actually right next to the holes that also have the sleeves in them, which help line everything up. Those are the first two holes that you would start when we go to put it back together. That's where we'll start. The first two bolts go in those holes. Here I'm showing you the thrust washers. Thrust washers on these things are always in three. You'll have a washer and then the bearing, the thrust bearing, and then another washer. And there's always going to be, it's always going to be that way. And there's going to be the thicker washer always goes on the aluminum side. If there's aluminum on one side, there'll be a thicker washer, and that'll go on the aluminum side. That transfer case that we took apart for our little sample, they forgot to put that washer on there. So that thing ran for a while with no washer at all on the aluminum side, so it ruined the housing. So that housing had to just go in the trash. Here I'm showing you more in detail. There's that oil port. I keep talking about it, but anyway, that's see, you can see how it scoops there, and then it kind of directs oil down that little channel out that hole in the back that always gets clogged up with silicone. In fact, this cover is completely clogged up, so I'm going to try to pop that little cork out. Because someone decided that they needed a ton of silicone and ruined it. And so anyway, so there's the hole, and then it has a hole right there that directs it right towards that rear bearing there. Here I'm taking off the snap rings that hold these gears down on the shaft there, and those things can just be a bugger sometimes, especially if you have to reuse them. If you don't have to reuse them, you can just open them way up and just kind of stretch them out and stuff. But I'm trying to keep them tight so that we can use them again. So yeah, they can kind of be a pain to get off, but it's not too bad. Just be patient with it. Good set of snap ring pliers for these ones though. The chintzy set will be frustrating for sure. You can see all the needle bearings that come out. Just kind of when you slide that thing off, they're going to start falling out. It's okay. Just don't worry about it. Just let them fall, but don't lose them all. Just so when you take it off, just let them accumulate in a pile there, and I'll show you how to get them back in there. You're not going to be able to take it apart without those bearings falling out, I don't think. I mean, you'd have to be some special kind of magic to do that. But I'll show you how you get them back in there here in a minute. And there's the trick. That's the magic for getting them back in. Vaseline works good, but you just got to make sure you get all the transmission ATF out of there, because the ATF dissolves it. So that's why I'm always wiping everything off and everything. So you got to get it real clean. And then that petroleum jelly, it's really sticky, so it keeps everything in place and it makes it real easy to put everything back together. So you just put a layer around it, and then just you put a washer down. There's a real thin washer. You put a washer down. You'll put a row of bearings in, just like a U-joint would have in it. And I'm sure everyone who does this type of thing has had to stack the needle bearings back in a U-joint when you screw up and have them pop all out. Anyway, so you just do it just like that. I use this Vaseline or petroleum jelly and stick them in there, make a whole row. Then you'll put another washer down on top of that, and then you do another row, and then you'll put a washer down on top of that one, and hopefully it's full and you don't have any bearings left. If you have a bearing left, it's not full, or if it doesn't look full, it means you lost a bearing and you're going to have to go hunting. I can't tell you how many times I take one of these transmissions or transfer cases apart, or a transfer case in general, and you'll find these needle bearings on the magnet, and that's from the guys who put it back together. I apparently don't take too much pride in it, and they just kind of throw it together, and apparently bearings must have fallen out, because I find those bearings in the magnet almost all the time. The one we did the little sample or testing on, that one had I think like 4 or 5 bearings, one of those bearings that were in the bottom of the case. I never did look to see if they're actually in there or not. So now you can slide it on there, usually in one piece. I was having a heck of a time with it. I couldn't get it all the way on there. I ended up having to take the synchro and stuff off. And that, I mean, it is what it is. I got it on there finally. I don't know why it was fighting me, but you don't want to force it, because then you'll just push those needles out, and that's what you're trying to avoid. You got them glued in there, so you want to keep the shaft vertical the entire time while you're doing that until you get that gear on there to hold them in. But anyway, I got it all together, got it back in, and that shortened housing makes a real nice little workstation. I keep standing in front of the camera. I'm again, this because I'm an amateur about doing it, so people can watch me do it. Anyway, so I got it all in there, and I got snap rings and stuff back on it, and put it back the way you took it off. It was pretty easy. It's not very hard. It's easier to put those snap rings on than it is to take them off. Now you set the rear end, or the transfer case, like we were talking earlier. When you put it back together, set it up that way, and there's a washer down in there that you can reach it with your fingers, but there's a washer down in there. You kind of got to get it centered up before you can slide that shaft in. It's easy too. You'll see it. You'll know what I'm talking about when you take it apart. And it's a good idea too, when you take it apart, just set up a video camera like I did, or your phone or whatever. That way you can reference it back if you have to, and you get stumped on how something was together. You get stumped, you can come back and look at it. So lots of cleaning up. Try to keep as much junk out of there as possible, and just keep it clean, keep wiping everything up, and you won't have any problems with it. I'm pretty confident that most people can do this. Here I found actually on the shift fork, and see, I didn't notice when I took it out, even though I looked at it. One of the plastic guides on the shift fork was broken. So I every time I take these things apart, I have a little box of NP208s, and I just have a baggie. I put all those in. So I had lots of them, so I just replaced it. Rebuild kit, if you're doing all this and you're rebuilding, a rebuild kit will come with them, so you wouldn't have to worry about it then. Anyway, so just keep cleaning stuff up, keep putting it back together the way you found it. Well, most likely the way you found it. Just remember what I said about those thrust washers. That's the most common thing that you'll find when you're taking them apart, that someone had maybe made a mistake on that. But again, a rebuild kit will come with new ones anyway, so you don't have to worry about it if they forgot them, unless they ruined the case in doing so. And you see how when I was putting that chain on, I was able to actually do it just only by tilting that short shaft. It takes a little bit of finesse to get it in there like that, but I find usually you can do it that way, and I find it easier than trying to slip both shafts down at the same time. But if you have to force it, then it's not worth doing it that way. A new chain will make that really hard. This chain's pretty tight, but a new chain would have made it a little harder. Here I'm just putting Vaseline on that the spring that goes on the other side of the shift fork. And I do that because when you're putting that cover on, one little bump in the little cap on there like goes bouncing off, and then you got to dig in there with a magnet and try to get it out, and half the time it goes down where you can't reach it and stuff. Here I'm showing you those washers again. There's the thick one, there's the thin one. Thick one always goes on the aluminum side. And anyway, so I'm going to set those up on that gear there, and then I always just put some Vaseline on everything just to so it has a little bit of initial lube. But the nice part about the Vaseline though is the ATF instantly dissolves it as soon as it touches it. It's gone. And I learned that rebuilding automatic transmissions. With the little balls, the check balls and stuff, you hold them in there with Vaseline, and that was the theory on them then too. So in a transfer case, it works real well as well. here I put real light silicone or Gooba gasket or whatever you want to call it, really light around there. You don't need a lot. And on this one, you do not need to go around the bolt holes. You just got to go around the inside edge. The bolt holes are on the outside, so you don't need to go around them there. On the tail housing, you do need to go around the bolt holes because there's oil on both sides of them there. So you will want to go around them there. But that one you want to be careful. Again, like the oil port there, make sure you don't clog it up. You don't want a premature rear bearing failure. You see those a lot, and it ruins the housing and everything when that happens. So anyway, I just kind of bolt it down. Remember, you got to bolt it through the two end bolts first. The one that you're facing right now, and the one on the other side. They have a sleeve in them, and that sleeve's like a dowel. And so you want to start with those two bolts because the other ones have play in the holes, so you could not be lined up if you try to tighten them up that prematurely. So anyway, you just start with those two bolts and get the thing down. There shouldn't be any resistance on that other than that little spring pushing up on it, which you can push down with your hand. So if you have any more resistance than that, you got something not in there all the way, and there's something holding you up. So take it off and inspect it. Here, and just putting the tail housing on, the plastic cover that's on the inside, it's actually like an oil guide and all that stuff. That only fits in there one way, and it's keyed onto the tail housing. It only fits on. It's not too hard to line up, but for some reason I was having a problem getting the shaft going through the bearing right, so I ended up tapping it down a little bit. But I was confident I had it lined up, so it was okay. And then just the 4 bolts there, and remember you got a silicone all the way around that and the bolt holes on that one, because if you don't, the oil will leak out of the bolt holes on the side. Here I'm just going to change the O-ring on the speedometer housing. They had packed that thing also full of RTV, Gooba gasket, silicone, whatever you want to call it. So I put a new O-ring on it, puts a little bit of Vaseline around it. That keeps the O-ring kind of soft, and it helps it slide in there so it doesn't get cut on the way in. But anyway, you shouldn't need to put RTV or anything on that when you put it in there. Just as long as you put a new O-ring on it anyway. So yeah, that's that. We pretty much got it now. Just little trinkets and stuff to go back on it. Nothing special.
All right, we got it all done. It's all rebuilt and everything, or rebuilt. I guess we used most of the original pieces. I did replace a few of them, and I did change all the seals out and stuff after the battery died on the camera. I didn't realize it. I changed the seal here, and I changed the seal in there. I pulled that cover, the adapter off, and put a new seal in there. Anyway, so those are done. There was one difference on this thing. The shaft that we got didn't have the hole for this dowel. And if you can see it there, so we couldn't use the dowel. So that must be an earlier shaft that we put in it, but it didn't. It must not. This must have been added later so that the thrust washer wouldn't spin on the shaft. There must have been a problem with that or something, and so they added that dowel just to keep it so that it wouldn't be allowed to spin. That's the only thing I could see that it would do. But anyway, we didn't have that on the new one, so we get the old style, I guess, shaft. So that might confuse someone if they're replacing their old shaft and all of a sudden they got one with a hole in it. But I think if you just ignore the hole, it'd probably do the same thing too. So it probably doesn't really matter. But anyway, so it's all rebuilt, sealed. I changed the front and the seal here and here. The battery died on the camera, so you didn't get to see it. Otherwise, I ended up taking that cover back and washing it, cleaning it. It was just, there's a reason why I take them apart horizontal. I don't want to take them apart back and have all that junk. I mean, you see all the nasty stuff that comes out of them. I didn't want to get it back here because we weren't going that deep into it. So you take it apart this way, it makes a big mess, but that's okay. And we got it. Anyway, so we took it apart this way, let it all drain out, and then you put it back together while it's standing up now that you got all the junk out of it. So anyway, so it worked out really, really well. Everything seems really nice. Pretty easy kit to install. It is not as simple as just changing the tail housing and the shaft. I think it would be impossible to do this if this thing were in the rig, because there's a washer a thrust washer down inside here when you're dropping that shaft in that isn't caged. So when you take it apart, it kind of falls down. It can't fall out, or you can't fall out to a point where you can't find it, but you wouldn't be able to get the thing back together. And I don't think my petroleum jelly trick would have held that washer. I mean, that would have been just a nightmare. Really, the only way to do that is to have these things standing up and drop them in. So yeah, anyway, so yeah, that's that. I'm gonna go throw the thing in real quick. All right, I'm gonna throw this in. This is one of those things where it's almost easier to do this on the ground. This is actually my second attempt. I already tried to get it up there once and I have it up there. I couldn't get the damn shaft in it. There. That sucked. All right, I was going to say something that I overlooked to tell you guys. I'm still new at this, but when I was building this cross member, when I was putting everything together up on the frame before we even started, I immediately thought I better make sure that these plates are not square. Well, they could be square, but it would be real hard to get this thing in and out if they were square. So I made sure that they were angled like that, and you can see. So that way, when you're putting the thing in and out, it actually kind of wedges in there instead of having to slip that whole way in between something that's real tight. And if it was going the other way, it would be stuck. We never would have got it back out after we put it together. So if you could see that there, it's like that on both sides. But I did that on purpose, and that's just so you can install it and remove it. It's just one of those things that would be really unfortunate if you get it all done and you're like, cool, and go to take it out and you can't even get it out because it's wedged in there. So anyway, that's why I did that. And then one other thing I did, and it'll stay this way, and I'm going to stamp the bottom that this is a non-clearance hole. So that's a 3/8 hole for a 3/8 bolt, and the exact same hole on the other side is the same. I don't know why I chose that hole, but I did. Anyway, so when we start off with those two bolts, everything else just lines up. All right, here we go. See if I can squish my my little impact gun. So I just made it so it was kind of close, and I left the jack down a little bit so that I can kind of position it. That thing is it's pretty heavy. I mean, a guy can pick it up, but not even close widthwise. There we go. That should be pretty close. There's one of them. Here we go, it's in. It's in by our two bolts that have no clearance, so technically the rest of them should just line right up. If my theory was correct anyway, but it should. They look like they're lined up. That one was. That one was. That one was. That one. There we go. All of them are in. I'm not doing anything anyway. I lowered the thing down so I could get the transfer case in and off, and I forgot to lift it back up again when I went to put the cross member in. So I kind of just was fighting that. So, and for some reason,
Oh, that's unfortunate. We're gonna have to clearance the tunnel. The yoke there, this yoke is actually touching pretty good actually. Yeah, we already have interference with our floor. That didn't take long. Really? Okay. I'm gonna fix it. We'll trim it back. It's okay. Well, I know that's why we didn't build the doghouse yet. That's it. It's gonna be all right. And here is the interference that that Bob's so upset about. He's up there writing reports and everything right now. Hopefully, we'll still have a job when we come back. But anyway, that's not that big of a deal. We'll trim the floor back. That's what I was trying to tell him. He just won't listen. That's all I'm going to get done on this thing this week. My wife and I are we have a trade show in Florida, in Orlando. Really good time of the year to go down there because it's just nasty here right now. We're in kind of like the melt off of winter, so it's just like a swamp. We're in eastern Washington, so anyway, so that's all I'm going to get done. I did order the shave kit. I don't know if I said that. I ordered the shave kit for that rear end, and I'm going to do it. I have really good ideas on how to do that, so anyone can do it at home. And it's not going to just be like gnarly work like a lot of the guys you see try to do it, without actually milling the rear end. If you guys have looked up that yet, milling the rear end down and then having the ring gear turned, or some guys are grinding the ring gear. We're going to do it. We're going to do it here. I think I have a really good idea on how to do that, machining the gear and cutting the bottom of the housing off. I really hope it works out. If it doesn't, it'll be a cool epic fail episode, and hopefully we don't ruin the housing. But I think it's going to work out, and it's gonna be real cool for guys who already have one of these in their rigs, because I think it's going to allow them to do it in rig, which will be real neat for them, and it'll just kind of be a weekend project instead of like a week project, doing it the other way. All right, well, thanks for watching this week. I got the budget sheet updated, and I updated the hours. I forgot to update the hours last week, and I think that was because there was too many hours put in, so it made me forget to do it. The only thing we really bought was just the seals for the transfer case. Everything else was already on the budget sheet, so pretty cheap one this week.